Works of art can be perplexing, and sometimes they can knock you dead. Netflix's Velvet Buzzsaw takes that idea and runs with it, giving life to pieces of art that might take your breath away, permanently. If you're having trouble figuring out what the film is trying to say, worry no more as we break down the bloody end of Velvet Buzzsaw. Don't be fooled by the glossy sheen. Despite a high art atmosphere, a generous budget, and a cast stacked with A-listers, at its heart, Velvet Buzzsaw is as trashy a horror movie as any installment of Friday the 13th. But as far as plot goes, the movie can be more accurately described as an art world version of Final Destination. Instead of the victims being generally unsympathetic cookie-cutter teens, they're uniquely loathsome, insufferably pretentious grown adults. You're flat out not supposed to like them, which makes it all the more exciting when the time comes to sit back and watch them suffer. Much like Final Destination, this is essentially a slasher movie with a metaphysical villain. In the Final Destination series, the enemy is death itself. In Velvet Buzzsaw, things are a little bit more complicated. Here, the killer is the vengeful spirit of a deceased artist, persisting from beyond the grave to lethally punish those who would seek to profit off of his or others' art. If it sounds a little silly, that's because it's supposed to be. Velvet Buzzsaw is not a particularly scary movie. As far as genre goes, it's best to describe it as a horror comedy, with the emphasis on comedy. But it's not a very funny movie either, as far as knee-slapping jokes are concerned. Above all else, the movie is a satire about bad people. Its humor comes from the absurdity of the characters and their ridiculous world, which they all take quite seriously. Think about the characters' names, which take pretentiousness to the point of parody. There's Morf Van Walt, Rodora Hayes, John Don Don, and of course, the vengeful artist Dease. All of these people are insufferable at best and evil at worst, generally only caring about themselves. With characters like this, the movie's world is already a total horror show, making the killings extra cathartic. A key to understanding the movie is realizing that it's not really trying to frighten you. When these characters get what's coming to them, you're supposed to be amused. Some of the first lines of dialogue in Velvet Buzzsaw come from a mechanized artwork called Hobo Man, a mixed media piece on display at Art Basel. Jake Gyllenhaal's critic character Morf has arrived to size up the piece, as well as whatever else catches his eye at the show.
Have you ever felt invisible?
The question appears to be commenting on homeless people, but it also applies to Velvet Buzzsaw's conception of the artist, as well as the bitter grudge that drives the movie's story along. For a movie about the art world, very few artists actually appear. Most of the characters are at these shows to buy, sell, hype up, or reject art. The artists themselves are spoken of like brand names, with their work being praised for its popularity and monetary value above all else. They're not treated like people who put their hearts and souls into their creations, especially the artist at the center of the plot. Morf determines the value of art by filtering it all through his own perspective. What he doesn't like doesn't sell. He may not be a gallery owner or an outright sellout like Rodora, but he's still a gatekeeper and a crucial part of the art world ecosystem. When Morf walks into the Art Basel show at the start of the movie, he passes by a sign that reads, "There's no confusion in my house," a statement that reflects his status as a critic. Confusion only exists in Morf's personal life. When he's at work, he speaks with exacting certainty. Morf is there to pass judgment. In his world, it's up to him to determine what qualifies as quality art. He dismisses the hit of the show, Hobo Man, as a derivative work that doesn't impress him. His assessment effectively cancels out all other praise, leading the piece to languish in storage after his bad review snuffs out all interest in it.
Your review of Hobo Man killed the sale. Instead of being seen, it's gathering dust at a storage facility.
I am not your mouthpiece.
Morf's critiques have direct consequences, with some bad reviews apparently being so distressing that they basically threaten artists' lives. In one instance, Morf is told about an artist who tailspins into self-destruction after being emotionally devastated by one of his brutal reviews.
Ricky got drunk and crashed his car last night. He's in a coma.
I heard he was crushed.
By the car?
Your review.
In the world of Velvet Buzzsaw, Morf's critiques are presented as a kind of violence, justifying his own eventual death at the hands of the living Hobo Man. Velvet Buzzsaw positions itself as a critique of the commercialization of art, with the vengeful spirit of Dease serving as the message's main vessel. But it's important to remember that Dease himself was not a particularly good person. As Morf and the other characters eventually discover, Dease was very violent and emotionally disturbed. Death didn't turn him into a killer spirit, it really just let his dark soul loose on the world. Despite all of this, it seems that everything would have been fine if Josefina had just followed Dease's wishes and allowed his work to be destroyed. Usually, blaming the victim is a nasty thing. In the context of Velvet Buzzsaw, in which the victims are pretty much always operating out of their own self-interest, it feels pretty justified. The killer is a bad person, sure, but there are no innocent victims in this movie. As haunting as Dease's paintings appear, it's not necessarily his artwork that's carrying a curse. Sure, his actual blood may be all mixed up with the paint he used, but that's more a signpost for the movie's themes than a key to its twisted magic. The actual function of Dease's curse is to weaponize all art, not just his own paintings. That's why Hobo Man comes to life to attack Morf, why Sphere is able to cut Gretchen's arm off in the movie's best kill, and why Josefina gets consumed by a roomful of living paint. The movie doesn't explain its rules very well, but the unifying thread of all the deaths is that they're committed by works of art, against people who see art as little more than something to be bought and sold. With these characters being so steeped in the art world, they're always vulnerable. They don't appreciate the power that surrounds them and end up paying for their ignorance with their lives. After a few kills have been tallied up, this message becomes really obvious. But the killings aren't as simple as selling art equals you die. They're more of an indictment of people's whole philosophies. The plunder of Dease's paintings results in multiple deaths. Bryson, the gallery installer who steals some of the artwork, John, the gallery owner whose body Coco finds, Gretchen, whose body Coco finds, Josefina, whose greedy desire to raise her status as an exhibitor led her to steal Dease's art in the first place, and Morf, the destructive critic whose body Coco also finds. Poor Coco. Morf spends most of the movie getting increasingly suspicious about the many deaths happening around him, but the only character to figure out what's going on is Rodora. After Bryson, John, Gretchen, Josefina, and Morf all die, Rodora accepts that the insane scenario of Dease bringing art to life to kill people probably has some merit to it. Sensing that she's probably next on the chopping block, Rodora hires a team of movers to strip her home of all artwork. Every image, every drawing, every postcard, counting up to 47 pieces in total. Satisfied that the job is done, she starts to rest more easily, until she feels a little tickle on the back of her neck. The Velvet Buzzsaw tattoo, a band logo from Rodora's days as a punk musician, is one piece of art she couldn't get rid of, leaving her helpless as it grinds to life to kill her dead. At the beginning of the movie, Rodora's old band is implied by the artist Amrish to have started from a sincere place before losing the plot, presumably becoming more of a brand name and a way of making money than a purely artistic outlet. Basically, she's a sellout and she knows it.
Yeah, the early stuff was great. Then it became like self-parody.
Amrish, being only 6 months removed from a life of poverty, is still in tune with his creative roots and acutely sensitive to the idea of selling out, a path Rodora committed to long ago for the sake of getting rich. It's a decision that ultimately dooms her, guiding her directly over the years to a most unexpected death. There's a moment at the beginning of Velvet Buzzsaw in which John Malkovich's character, an artist named Piers, expresses a desire to get away from the tiresome circus of art as business and return to something pure. When we meet him at Art Basel, he's successful, sober, and creatively unsatisfied. He seems to be unhappy, and his state of mind is a key thing to keep in mind as you unpack the movie's themes.
I am fighting to get back to creation, to revelation, the billion years of energy sparking through our brain.
As the movie eventually concludes, this path is a righteous one. Writer-director Dan Gilroy talked about the themes Velvet Buzzsaw explores in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, saying, "I was very interested in the idea of the relationship between art and commerce in today's world. It's a very uneasy relationship. That's not to say that commercial success diminishes a work, but it doesn't define it either. I wanted to get at the idea that art is more than a commodity." Ultimately, the movie is about elevating the pure act of creation over crass commercialization. That's why the man on the street at the movie's end, a real hobo man, isn't in any danger from selling the Dease art he finds following Rodora's death. Sold for cheap on the street, the art is judged by pure aesthetics, not by perceived value. Dease wanted his work destroyed, but at the end of the movie, it's out in the world anonymously, which also seems to be an acceptable fate. His body of work is no longer an 8-figure batch of commodities, but once again pieces of art for art's sake. Velvet Buzzsaw expresses its themes not just through the people it kills, but also by the people it doesn't. Poor Coco, who stumbles across so many of the movie's dead bodies, never gets a higher-level job that she so covets. Because of the distance she maintains from the art industry's rotten mortal core, she survives Dease's wrath. Damriche, haunted by gazing into a Dease painting and feeling as though it's watching him, just gets up and leaves the movie at one point, sensing the danger and running for his life. As for Piers, he goes hermit and starts drinking again, surviving out of his desire to get away from the alienating commercial side of the art business. It's an amusing message for the movie to commit to, but it really does go there. Going back to being a drunk restores Piers's creativity and basically saves his life.
I think sober hasn't been good for him.
Well, this was done 15 years ago. Pierce was in the full bloom of alcoholism here.
Exactly.
In letting these 3 characters survive, the movie is saying that they're all on the correct paths. In the final shot of the movie, beneath the credits, Piers walks on a beach, scratching shapes into the sand with a stick. In close-up, it seems as though there could be some bigger message in what he's doing, but as the camera pans back, it becomes clear that there's no deeper meaning to his drawings. He's creating just for fun. His colleagues made art into something to consume, and so got consumed by it. Piers goes back to basics, seeking that primal creative energy. He ends the movie looking drunk and joyful with his life intact, performing for no one in particular, drawing aimless circles on the beach. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.